What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today, I'm bankrupt once again by both Nick and Jake, as today we talk about our Radcliff, Kentucky 1K experience. And yeah, that's about it. We're going to get into it. Always, like always, enjoy it. Buttons, links. I'm talking super fast because it's been a while. What's going on, guys?
What's going
Forgot
on,
how to
man?
do this. What is this?
It has been a bit. So literally a week ago from when this video is dropping, Radcliff, Kentucky had a 1K event. Now, by the time everyone got there was actually 21 people showed up, so it was a bit short of what they were shooting for to guarantee the 1K. But pricing was first place got $305, second place got $195, and then third and fourth got $75. And Jake, you actually managed to get first place.
Yeah, the first time I've ever won a big cash event like this. I mean, it wasn't a huge event, but it was big to me, you know?
And congrats. I mean, like, you and Nick both put in, I feel like that at least week and a half prior to the event, you guys are just grinding away on whatever had topped recently and just figuring the ins and outs for those matches. And I thought for a while you were going to do a yellow build, but you went lemon lime.
Yeah, so initially, Nick and I were both gonna play Boba Fett, and during testing, we kind of discovered like the power of like the mid range Luke deck, like the blue green Luke that's been around lately, and it had a pretty good showing recently. And then Nick shifted over to that. And then once that happened, I was like, well, if you're not going to be playing Lemon Lime Boba, like the traditional Boba ECL deck, then I'll just play it. And ended up working out pretty well for me. So I'm uh like you said, we put in a ton of work, probably like a month leading up to the
Oh, yeah.
event, and I really couldn't have done nearly as well as I did without Nick to test with and bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, I feel like we've been collaborating pretty hard. I mean, the payoff shows. We've carpooled together. We bought a case together, and we're kind of in on it as like a team, I would say.
Oh yeah.
And if one person's wins, we all wins, right? So happy for my boy.
And we joked before going into this event that if one of us topped, dinner for everybody. And I got free dinner, which is kind of great. So I ended up playing the Vader control deck that was kind of that top. I don't remember where did it top at actually.
It was in Florida. I forget the name of the city, but PPG put on a big 5K, and it ended up
It was
winning that.
Kissimmee, which is Orlando.
And I played that at our locals like the Wednesday beforehand. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna take this deck. And you guys said you were testing in Nick. You ended up going a green Luke build, right?
Yeah, I was playing Luke initially as a red build, more aggro, but Luke itself is kind of slow for that. The red blue space is mostly safe for Church because it can come out of tournament earlier. So we switched over to green, and it was working pretty well for me before initial testing. It had pretty not favorable matchups, but everything was winnable. It wasn't a state where you were just hard countered by something. You always had an out to whatever you were playing. So I was going for the more, I guess, safer route. Didn't know what was expected to see there, so I wanted to make sure I could at least cover all my bases so I wasn't just blown out of the water.
Let's talk about like I guess more or less because we've been playing at we have two different locals we tend to bounce at in our town, which is kind of great. I think there's more than two locations we can play as well. Just comes to distance, but being able to play with multiple people, getting the fields of decks, and then going to like an event like this. What was the biggest difference for you both in this, with that experience? How about that?
I think the biggest difference for me was the metagame out there in Radcliffe. Locally, we have it's a pretty big mix. Like we have some aggro players, we have a few control players, a lot of mid-range players. I think we went to, like you said, we went to a locals the Wednesday before the event, and there were probably 2 or 3 people on Boba Green. I think 3 or 4 people on Luke Green. So like mid range is really popular in our local meta. And in Radcliffe, I played 4, arguably 5 control decks. I guess Han's a mid range deck. So I played against 4 control decks, 1 mid range, and aggro twice. So there's a lot more control than I was expecting to see.
Yeah, there was definitely more control in my experience as well. What about for you, Nick?
Well, yeah, I think Jake pretty much covered the bases as far as what we saw. The biggest takeaway for me from that event was the time rules and
Mm.
ties,
Yeah,
tiebreakers.
yeah.
Since this game is very unique in where a tie counts as a double loss, we saw a lot and we talked about it a lot since there was so many control decks. Most of the games were going to time, and people were just both losing. There was a lot of people that had double losses because they just couldn't finish games out. So I think that's going to take away a lot of the control players' steam. Like a lot of people were meta deck and net decking, obviously, from the Blue Vader because we saw a lot of it. There was some Iden and some Krennic, but it was mostly Blue Vader. And again, it was just everybody, all the Vaders were matched up against each other. So I dodged it. I didn't play Blue Vader at all that day. But everybody was at the bottom tables playing control because they were just getting paired up with each other because everybody was just losing.
We had at that event, from what I counted, 6 blue red blue Vader players there. I was one of those, and I actually didn't play against any other Vader players. I played though decks that were just the exact same thing. I played 2 different Krennics. Both of those were blue green. I played a Iden red deck, which is practically the exact same thing I was playing. Just they had the ability to heal every once in a while, much like the Krennic decks I was playing against, which is a heal control deck. One Blue Vader did manage to get to the top spot, which I think was Jake's final game prior to going into Top Cuts. And
Yeah.
I think he said he round 1 did the mirror, and then from that point on got out of that. Like Nick said, I was stuck in the control on control matchups, which that the Wednesday prior, I think I only played one kind of mirror control game, and that was also a green Krennic, and I managed to take care of that one, which was great. But at this event, yeah, 2 or 3 of my rounds ended pretty much in a double loss, which kind of hurt.
Yeah, I really wish there was a better way to handle that. I know at one point they were doing like whichever player had more life on their base, but if one player is running a 30 health base and one player is running a 25 health base and neither of them have taken damage, then that can feel bad. So I hope as the game grows that we find like TOs find a better way to deal with that going to time. Like we even saw a game at the event where players got an extension and still could not decide a winner during the extension and ended up getting a double loss, and that was really sad. Like, um, I could totally see how people would be frustrated with that, and especially if you're not the one that's playing slowly. Like if you're playing an aggressive deck and your opponent is on a control or mid range, something that's a little bit more complicated, and your turns take 30 seconds and theirs take 3 minutes, then that can be pretty frustrating.
Which this is, I'm gonna say it's kind of a gripe on my end. I don't know how a turn could take that long. When and this could just be from experience of just playing card games, and we've all 3 of us been playing card games for. Actually, I'm not sure. Nick, was Dragon Ball your first one?
No, I've played various things.
Okay, so we've all been playing card games for at least a decade, if not more. And a lot of times, I know the order of I'm going to play something. Now, if I get thrown a curveball, I just have to readjust my plan. But I feel like sometimes that happened. It wasn't to that extreme, but like they play a card. I'm like, all right, cool, boom, boom. All right, you're at action now, and then they will pause and kind of go back and forth and debate. And I'm like, come on, this is control and control, man. just pop my card. We're both doing the exact same thing. I play a card, you pop it. You play a card, I pop it. So
Well, we got a boogeyman. We
like
we got 55 minutes to get through 3 control on control games.
there was
Like,
some matches where my opponent would go pass. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll take initiative, and they're like, oh man, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, like that's just what it is. And my goal was if I could just mill them out, then make them take damage that way. I'm gonna do it that way because I didn't want to get the double loss, but it did happen like 2 or 3 times though, unfortunately on my part.
Yeah, and I'm not. You wouldn't classify me as a control player by any sense. Like I've played control decks from time to time, but it just seems very discouraging for people that like that strategy because in I mean with your if you have like a running a standard locals where there's no like cash prizing or low stakes, I mean sure people will let play longer, which is fine, and usually it's like a best of one anyway. But when you're in that like official format, official like rules and such, like you want to play the best thing you're comfortable with, and if it's control, you're just automatically putting yourself at a disadvantage, which I think in this game is just not fun. I mean, you're kind of alienating people for doing something like that.
It sucks as someone who like for me who likes to play like the prison style. Um, it's just not good when it's the mirrors. So it made me rethink. Like I lost my first round, and I was like, why did I bring this deck? I don't know what to expect for us this time here.
my round one opponent was on Red Iden, and after our match, there was still like 20 or 30 minutes left on the round clock, and he was like, "You want to play some friendlies?" And switched over to his Boba Green deck and ended up beating me, and was like, "Man, I'm so bad now. Like, I should have just played this deck. I had it right here." I was like, "Yeah, man, that happens." Like,
He mentioned he
I
was
know
missing
I've been
pieces, right?
to, yeah, just a couple
Yeah, but
though,
it was still
but
good enough to.
yeah, to took a game off me, and I had pretty much the full like list I wanted for nothing.
Well, from what I've noticed, and you see it all the time with a ton of people on YouTube right now posting about this game and on Facebook and stuff. There's a lot of stuff winning. I mean, there's your standard triangle format, control, mid range, aggro, but there's a lot of surprising things that get tops and wins in this game, and it's only set one. So I think the meta is really open for people to try their own thing, and I think a lot of people are just scared of it mostly because they want a net deck because they see what wins and just want to copy that. And also some of it comes to product availability too. I mean, we're in the biggest drought of cards I've ever seen in my life. So a lot of people are having to come up with different strategies. But I feel like this type of game, the way it's set up and mechanically, you can play it pretty much however you want to, and you can have a good time. I mean, granted, there are some things where you'll just get shut out by hard counters, but there's a lot of room for a lot of decks in this game right now.
Yeah, there's that feeling. I like talking about other card games. Magic, for example. There's a lot of decks you could build, still have fun, still can win them, still lose them. I feel like it's how Star Wars is, and especially like how you guys said it's such an early game right now. Um, if people are just like used to playing, say like what's topping, and all of a sudden this curveball comes in here, you don't expect it. It might smoke you. Like for example, our Wednesday locals, the guy who won it was playing Hella Green, and you go, okay, cool. They're playing Spectre. No, they were playing Rebels. Like, wasn't expecting that at all, and that was a big shock. Like that was my only loss on Wednesday. Was a deck I wasn't expecting that curveball in. So
Oh yeah, like I've really enjoyed the way like the set one meta has been shaking out. It feels like every weekend where there's big events, the meta like evolves a little bit and takes another step forward. And like Nick said earlier, we're only in set one. So like I played Battle Spirits when that game initially launched, and the decks that were good were found very quickly and did not change until really a couple months after set 2 came out. And this game, it is just not that way. Like, there are cards that I had written off initially or thought were too slow that I've come back around on. Like, playing cards out of Aspect has picked up in popularity, and that has proven to be a powerful strategy for a lot of decks. So it's just really exciting to see how the meta is going to evolve as new cards come out and new strategies get developed.
I think one of the elements to that, which makes this game quote unquote different than a lot of others, is the chest aspect of it, where it's not like you're playing out your whole turn and then your opponent plays that whole turn. No, you're playing actions. You're doing one thing, your opponent does one thing. So there's no counters really, but it's the idea of just being able to go, they play a card. Okay, do I want to play the card I want to play? Do I want to make an attack? Or do I just want to get rid of that or control that card down? And I think that's why we're seeing all the different styles of like things winning, because there's that process where, like I said, they play a card. How do you react? And if you react good, fantastic. If you react poorly, you'll see it bite you in the ass. But then you'll know how to react to it differently in the future. So one thing I wanted to go over before we kind of ended this, since you did get first place, Jake, want to kind of talk about your deck, what you played, which was a Boba Fett ECL, Energy Conversion Lab. Was there anything in this list that was...
Click that deck image, boy.
Yeah, go ahead and pull up the deck image. There's a couple things I'd like to talk about, but it's mostly a pretty standard deck, right next to Jason.
Yeah, I see it now.
So first, I'm going to start with Recruit. I'm going to have to apologize to our local buddy Chase. When the game first came out, he was running this card in one of his decks, and I was like, this card's kind of cool. Like, it's a top 5 search, but you can miss with it, and it doesn't really provide you any tempo, and I suggested he cut it. And then after seeing other players run this card, I kind of decided to take a chance on it, like, the night before the event. And I really love what this card lets you do in this deck specifically. You just get to look at the top 5 and grab a unit for 1 resource, and then the other cards go to the bottom of your deck in a random order. But with Boba, a lot of the times you just get a free resource by conducting your turn the way you normally would and activating the leader effect. And other than Greedo, there's not really a lot you can do in this deck with 1 resource, but Recruit kind of fits into that curve perfectly. And then this came up really big in the hard control matchup I had before Top Cut. If you do miss with this card and reveal 5 events in a matchup like that, you just guaranteed pretty much that you're going to draw gas on your next turn, because you moved all of those events that you don't really want to see in that matchup to the bottom of the deck. And then a lot of people have been playing Gamorrean guards recently. I definitely agree with that choice, especially because if you don't ramp, you play one of these on 4 and it doesn't die, you can start the beginning of turn 5 with an OB for 6, and then deploy your leader after, get all your resources and turn around and play like a 7 fleet defender or something. And it just really lets you kind of keep the tempo in your favor, even though you might look like you're kind of behind on board. Most of this deck, like I said, is pretty standard. The only spice is really in the sideboard here. We went with 3 Spark of Rebellion, 3 Star Vipers, 2 Bounty Hunter crew, and 2 of these Reinforcement Walkers. Star Vipers just come out for resupplies in the aggro matchup because we don't really have time to spend just ramping. And 3/3 Restore 2 ship is really good. And with that and 7 Fleet Defender, on turn 2 we have 6 targets in deck that we can use the Conversion Lab to ambush an A-Wing or something.
Now, I know real quick from your guys' testing, 7 of those cards are meant for literally the Vader control matchup?
Yeah, so in the Vader control matchup, I bring in all 3 Sparks of Rebellion for Overwhelming Barrage, because OB is just a card you don't really want to see in that matchup. Only thing you're really going to kill with it is a child sin, and then whatever you give the +2/+2 to, they're just going to entrench or kill in some other way. So we bring in Spark of Rebellion for those. Bosk is also kind of trashy in that matchup, so we can take him out for these bounty hunter crew. And then we also remove the 2 copies of Shoot First for 2 copies of our Consortium Star Viper, just because that's another unit. It's a 3/3 for 3. They can't force choke it. They can't hit it with make an opening. So they have to spend an actually like good and expensive removal spell to kill it. And it's just gonna like chunk into their base for 3 every turn until they block it with a patrol craft. But Spark of Rebellion and Bounty Hunter crew, the idea is that we're going to play Spark of Rebellion to peek the hand and try and rip an Entrenched or rip a Super Laser Blast, rip an Avenger, and then the following turn we can play Bounty Hunter crew, maybe ambush a Childson, but chances are we won't get to activate the ambush on it, which is fine. And then we'll just pick the Spark of Rebellion right back up and then claim, right? Because that's your 6 resource turn. And then on 7, you can start the turn by casting the Spark of Rebellion again, trying to hunt for Super Laser Blast, and then you can extend your board with your little 1 and 2 drops. I devoted, like you said, 7 cards in my sideboard to that Vader Blue matchup, brought all of them in, saw none of them in either of the games I played against Blue Vader.
In the final top cuts, because you and that Vader player were back in there, were you confident in that rematch, even though like you didn't see any of your pieces?
I'll say I really wanted his opponent to win.
Okay. Which is what happened. Which was I think it was someone you had played earlier in the event.
Yeah, he had a really spicy double red Cassian Andor deck, and in Swiss, I was able to win 2-0, but in our second game, he was literally a damage off from beating me. So I knew if I played him again, that wouldn't be an easy matchup, but I was more confident in that than going back into the Blue Vader matchup after having just played him and him seeing literally my entire deck over the course of those games.
And I'm guessing it's how all events like this are. You guys did get to see each other's lists prior to matching up in that final top cut. So
yeah, I sat down against my top 4 opponent. He was on Casino Han, and I handed him my deck list, and he goes, "What does Recruit do?" It's like I've never seen this card in a deck list before.
It's a good card. Like I don't know why people hated on it originally.
Well, I think that people were putting it in control decks, and because it's an event that kind of gives card advantage and isn't very expensive. But I think in those decks, you really want to see your events more than you want to see units. And in Boba, like, as long as I have a Waylay, an OB, or a Surprise Strike in hand, I know I've got basically all the removal I need. So Recruit ends up being pretty safe. And it just lets you find a unit you want to see. Like, the deck is really dependent on playing Fire Spray on 6, and Recruit just helps you make sure you find it.
So I think that kind of covers what I wanted to kind of talk about. Anything else you guys want to add into this whole? Also, we got Hibachi later at night. That was great. But anything you guys wanted to add to your experience before we get off?
Hey?
Yeah. Oh, me? Okay.
You lit up. I thought you were going to say
Same here.
Well, I can now. It's always good going to events like these. I mean, granted, this one was very local. We've gone to farther out ones before, but this one's really nice just to do a day trip and do. And I'm originally from Elizabethtown anyway, so it was just going home to see family, and then the buddies coming up to 15 minutes away. So when we do this stuff when we can, and it's always good just as a hangout time thing. Even if we don't play well, or if we do play well, it's always fun to support each other and just have fun playing games like this. And it worked out pretty well for everybody, so I think it was a good time.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really liked some of the decks I saw. I played against almost nothing I prepared for other than Blue Vader. And really looking forward to the next one. We got store showdowns coming up, so if you want to beat me in those, this is probably the deck list I'm playing. So
To add on to both of those, yeah, no, this was I think our first Star Wars event outside of our normal locals, which was a great experience. I will say after that first round loss, I texted my fiance. I was like, "Yeah, I don't feel well. I lost my first round." And she's like, "I'll come pick you up." I'm like, "No, I got to support the boys," and I'm glad I did. So, but yeah, thanks for
awesome.
thanks for all tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed this little conversation we had about our trip up here and Jake's top list. But yeah, that's it. Bye.